If you cannot stomach any risk, low or high, business is not the place for you. My doctor at that point said, Carrie, the average adult can deal with one core stressor at a time, maybe two if they're pretty resilient. You take on 3 or 4 at a time on purpose. He said, you've got to stop. Faith is one way that I tackle obstacles. Faith is kind of an anchor that brings us back. Is it an airy-fairy, I make wishes and things happen? No, I work hard.
Hello and welcome to Unstoppable. I'm your host, Kerwin, and today on the show we talk to Carrie Wilkerson. Carrie's story is incredible. For those of you who are considering making the transition from a job into the business world or into the entrepreneurial world, but from a home-based perspective, this is incredible. Carrie was actually a high school teacher who was 6 figures in debt, overweight, overwhelmed, and she had just adopted 2 kids, one of them which was special needs, and she decided to start a business. Now, you can't think of putting any further pressure on someone than this, and if you want to work out how to survive and thrive, this is going to be inspiring. So if you've ever had excuses as to why you can't start, then this one's going to blow all excuses out of the water. Check it out. Carrie Wilkerson. This episode is brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for businesses. If you have ever wanted to grow your business faster than what you can right now, if you need to make more revenue, if you need more leads, if you need more clients, if you need to know how to plan your business in a strategic way in order to hit big goals, if you need to learn how to scale your business and grow your team and your business so that you have more freedom, then this program is for you. Imagine 3 days immersed with me where we cover all aspects of business, but we do it from an immersive but also an execution standpoint. We execute every step of the way. And we're looking at 5 key areas. We're looking at your psychology. We're looking at your marketing, your sales, your leadership, and we're looking at your planning and how we integrate these 5 key areas to grow your business and your brand quickly. So if you'd like to find out more information, kerwinray.com. But ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure, fresh off the boat from Texas, Carrie Wilkerson, thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
It's a real honor.
Sit down, it's over.
I have no idea. Like I'm dyslexic within my geography.
There you go.
Yeah.
As long as we know how to get on the plane, we're good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in here. I know you had an early start today, but for those people who perhaps don't know who Carrie Wilkerson is, what you do, give us the nutshell. What do you do? Who is Carrie?
Who is Carrie? You know, I am just an average, everyday girl who likes to help people see my mess and know that there's hope for them too. I love to help people see that there is just a little bit extra between ordinary and extraordinary.
Yeah, right.
And so living our best life and whatever that means for us, I think is possible for everyone.
And you wrote a book.
Yeah, a couple.
A couple of books?
Yeah, Barefoot Executive was my first one. Yeah, that's a bestseller. The Barefoot Executive is about creating an income at home, an executive income at home on your terms with your dress code, my dress code, you know, and keeping your priorities intact.
Yeah,
so that's for the home-based business owner.
Okay.
And then the next one's coming out very, very soon. Yeah, very exciting.
You have a prelude here?
Yeah, it's called Move the Needle.
Okay.
And we've been working on it a few years.
I love that name.
Move the Needle, how the tiny transformations that add up to totally and radically change your body, your business, and your bank account.
I like it. Now, you were mentioning before when we came in here, you've been in this industry for a long time.
Yeah, I'm kind of a grandma in the online world, or even the work at home space. I had a virtual team before that was a thing, when we had dial-up internet.
Wow.
Yeah, if you guys can.
You had a VA. I didn't even know VA was invented in the dial-up stage.
Company.
Wow.
And this was 15 plus years ago.
Wow.
Dial-up internet. Yeah, we were dragging stuff to servers before there were all the wizards and all women doing all this technical stuff. But we were a virtual services company before it had a name. So that was my first industry online.
Okay. Yeah. So Carrie, you're a very successful online executive, I guess you could say, mum of 4, but I'm going to assume that you just didn't pop out with all of this success and fame around what you do. Where did it all start? How did we get here?
Desperation.
Where were you born?
I was born in Hollywood, Florida, so opposite from where we are.
Okay.
And now Hollywood, Florida. My dad was a Coast Guard military officer. So I'm a proud daughter of a first responder and military man, 27 years
Nice
in
and
the
disciplined,
military.
strict.
Very strict, very Southern family, so very patriarchal. The only girl of 4 kids, so lots of brothers, lots of testosterone in my house. Probably explains a lot about my comfort with risk and also my volume. But I was born there when I was just out of NICU because I was the only survivor of 8 pregnancies that my mom had.
Wow.
Yes, so just out of NICU. My 3 brothers are all adoption stories.
So you came out as a fighter?
I came out as a fighter. My dad said, that's our girl. She's going to make it, and she's going to be anything she wants to be. True story.
Wow.
We moved to Alaska right after Florida. So
How old were you there?
12 days.
12 days old.
Preemie, month early, yeah. So started in Alaska, and then we were all over after that. But we retired, when my dad retired and went to college with teenagers.
Wow.
We settled in Florida, in Fort Worth, Texas, because that's where my mom's people were from and where his people had settled. So,
Yeah, right.
So we're landlocked in Texas after being on the water, for my whole life. But that's where we are now. I married a Texas boy. We've been married for I'd say how many years, but it would give up my true age, which is not necessarily necessary. 4 kids ranging in age from junior high to working adults and out of college adults.
Yeah, wow.
Yes.
You don't look old enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the appropriate answer.
Yes.
So the reason I started a business and the reason I got to where I am now.
When did you start a business? So did you start in the workforce though?
It was 20. I never thought I was entrepreneurial. If you look back, you can see some clues, but 21 years ago, we adopted siblings from the foster care system, foster to adopt.
Wow.
Little brother and sister, toddlers, and I became a mama overnight. And I was a high school teacher, teaching older kids, loved it, was great at it. Inner city school, loved it, instant mama. And
not just to 1, to 2.
2, and one has very special needs. So it was a full-time job. And I remember the night before our teacher contracts were due, we had agreed, I was going back to work. We had agreed we were going to figure it out. The night before I had to sign the contract, the deadline night, I sat up in bed and I said, I can't leave them. I can't leave them. They don't know the word mom. They don't know where they belong or who they belong to. And
How old were they when you adopted them?
We chose them, so I have to be here. So my daughter Emily was 8 months when she moved in, and Mark was 2 years and 3 months.
Wow.
And they are now, Emily graduated college and she's in the full-time workforce. She's 22 and doing actually very, very well in the workforce. And then my son Mark is 23 and a half. As a matter of fact, 6'2", towers over his mama, and they're doing great. He still has some intellectual disabilities. He will never be 100% independent. And so the reason I started a business was to be home with them. The reason I grew it to the proportions that I grew it was because he's going to need me the whole rest of his life. And when people say, what motivates you?
Well, actually, that was going to be my very next question. Like, it's clear the life situation motivated you to change from being a high school teacher to working for yourself. But that in itself is a massive leap. Like, you're a high school teacher. Where do you go from here? You've now got 2 kids and you want to start a business to be able to have more time.
Your spare time. Well, so the beauty of that is, of course, I made the decision over the summer right before contracts were due. So I still had about 6 weeks of paycheck left.
Okay.
When I look back now at what we were making combined, I don't know what he was thinking. What he said to me was, we'll figure it out. You've always figured it out. I know you will create this out of something. We'll eat rice and beans. We'll do whatever it takes. We've got 6 weeks till the paycheck runs out.
You got 6 weeks. Don't fuck it up.
6 weeks. There we go. So I actually went to a library, if you remember those institutions, checked out books. I said, I'm college educated. I'm a smart girl. There's this new technology called the internet that I think is going to stay. My husband's very much like, oh, that's a trend. Don't start email, And so I really was born out of desperation. But what I want people to hear and want people to know is that the reason why you started your business doesn't have to be always the reason why you keep going in your business. I hear some people say, when it gets tough, remember why you started. Maybe, but my why has changed a lot over 21 years. I have 2 more kids now. I have 4 kids now. My life looks radically different. And the reason I keep going is different than the reason I started. Because they don't need me at home anymore. They need the money. I love the choices that they have. But now I have older parents.
Yeah.
So, and then I have a mother-in-law with Alzheimer's. So my why and my reasons change, and that's okay if your why changes. It doesn't mean you have to get out of business. It just means you have to keep finding what drives you.
Fundamentally, though, family is one of the biggest things that drives you, though.
Whatever your core values are.
Whatever yours are, I
love being a mom.
Yeah.
I've known since I was a little kid that I wanted to be a mom. I'm not that doesn't necessarily define me, but I think it has refined me. And
great phrase.
Raising 4 humans with integrity and character that are giving back to the overall good of creation, to me, is very important.
Such a responsibility.
That's my responsibility. I wanted to be home for that. They travel with me some. I'm not gone as much as some people might think. They're very integral to the decisions that I make.
So you're still very home-based now as a business owner?
And I'm kind of a one-woman show. I have a part-time VA. I don't have a big nanny staff.
Yeah.
And that's no criticism to anybody that does. I'm not hating on help.
Sure, no,
I mean,
you do you, boo.
You do you. And if help works for you, that's fine.
So I want to go back to that 6-week period, because that sounds to me like...
like a deadline?
No, that sounds like the Genesis in your Bible. Like, it's like, okay, this is where creation began. Like, what happened in that 6 weeks?
Because you're like, happens without a deadline, right?
Exactly. But I guess what I'm going to kind of prime the question with is, you know, you're fresh out of school, you've gone to the library. How do you decide what you want to do? Because everyone says, do what you love.
Oh, I think that's bull.
Really?
Wow. I think sometimes you do what pays the bills.
Yes,
you have a responsibility to pay the bills.
Sometimes you have to.
And so I think until you get past that point of desperation, we don't necessarily have the luxury, and I'm a little sick of the entitlement, quite frankly. That probably tells my generation right there, right? I can't always do what I love, or I'd be Chip and Joanna Gaines, like decorating a house. And I could probably do that, you know, truthfully. My brothers are contractors. We could rock that out. You know, or I'm passionate about adoption. My 3 brothers are adopted. 2 of my kids are adopted. 90% of my family would not exist without adoption. I'm passionate about it. But can I monetize that? Would that make sense for me? Could I make as big of an impact with that? Or could I make an impact by using skills that I'm good at, public speaking, writing, coaching, motivating, and then funding adoptions or contributing $100,000 to orphans or whatever I can do using the skill set I do have. So I don't know that we have to love what we do. I think we have to love who we do it for and why we do it.
The reason we're doing it.
Yeah. My first business, when I was doing virtual services and a publishing company for direct sales business owners, I did not love desktop publishing. I wanted to throw the computer in the trash. I was so over it. But I loved my clients that I served, and I loved getting out of debt. We paid off 6 figures of debt in a very short period of time. I loved freeing my husband from a job hostage situation that he was in at the time.
I love that job hostage.
You know, there's a ransom for that. And to earn that money, I couldn't do what I loved. I had to do what I could.
Required?
For the people that I loved.
So what was your first bit? Like, what was you're out, you've come home, you've got all your books in the library?
Yeah, so I actually started multiple things.
The build-up is intense right now. Everyone's on the edge.
I had stacks and stacks of books everywhere. This is also in my book, The Barefoot Executive. I said I wrote the book I wish I'd had. Because at the library, I did not find a lot of good answers. And there was no searching on the internet at that point. I eventually settled on 2 different things, because I wasn't totally convinced they were the right thing, and I was right. One was direct sales. So I jumped into a party plan company because this was 1998, and work at home opportunities, it just wasn't common like it is now, people working at home. So I jumped into a party plan company where I represented a company with a turnkey marketing plan, and I did home parties and sold things, right? That was my first business opportunity. At the same time, I couldn't leave the internet alone. I had a laptop that I had gotten as part of payment for consulting with a school district that I was working with. See, even there I was hustling. And I said, let me do some of what I was doing for your marketing and your outreach on campus. Let me do that at home with the computer. I'll send you the results at the end of every day, and you can pay me, you know, on a set basis. So I was doing virtual services even at that point in 1998, which is a little unheard of. Called an attorney that I used to work for. I said, I have this laptop, I have this cord, I have an internet, and I think I could call all your payables. I know you're busy in the office and I know this is not getting done. Why don't you let me call your payables, follow up with emails, do a marketing campaign? So I was hedging both of those bets. I don't recommend that. I really think it's better to focus on one thing at a time, but I also know me. And I had to figure which one worked. I did very well in the direct sales company, earned free cars, trips, jewelry, the whole 9 yards, did great, burned out within 3 years, but then married that business with my services business, created a service for that type of business owner.
For that industry.
And made multiple millions of dollars doing templated desktop publishing newsletters. Think Dan Kennedy, but for pink Cadillac drivers. And that's what I did. Sold that business in 11, I think, because that's when, right after my...
Did you build that up to a team online?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Some of them I still have never met.
How many was on the team when you built it?
I think our maximum team was 14.
Okay.
We were serving 1,700 clients a month with recurring billing. We were also at the forefront of recurring billing, right? Stu McLaren would be so proud. We had a membership service-based business, and we first took checks. That lasted 1 month, and I said, we're growing so fast, there's no way we can scale that. We went to QuickBooks, and at the time, there was nothing online that would recurring bill. So QuickBooks, every month, my husband would sit there and process those charges one at a time as they grew and grew and grew. Finally, we were able to switch to, I think it was probably, the grandfather of One Shopping Cart, Tom Antion, the whole 9 yards. I mean, we've been there. I told you I was the grandma in this industry. And so we used all of that online, what people would call internet marketing technology. I brought it to this service business. As a result, I said, I think there's something else we can do. And closing in 2007, 2008, I was thinking, I think we're about to have an economic incident. I feel like there's a recession coming up. I feel like something's going to shift, and I don't want this to be our only income. Now, we were killing it. We were crushing it. It was so great. Great salaries for the people working with us. We were really helping a lot of people. I had retired my husband, paid off all the debt, had 4 kids by this point. The youngest was 10 weeks old. And joined Yannick Silver's mastermind because I wanted to start an online component of a business. At that point, my nickname was the Barefoot Executive because I came down the stairs one day super fat and happy and pregnant. And my husband said, you are living your dream. You're at home with your kids. You're about to give birth. 2 of them were being homeschooled at the time. And I was creating an executive income and empowering 10, 15 other women to do the same. People were asking me to come speak. Like, I never intended to be a speaker. Yeah. Come tell us what you're doing and how you're doing it. Come talk to us. And I never wear shoes when I'm home. So he said, you're a Barefoot Executive. You need to write a book. You need to write a book called that. And so instead, I started a website. Tim Kerber, Ryan Lee. I went through a program they had for membership sites. Wow. Yeah. Launched the Barefoot Executive August 27th, 2007 with a 10-week-old in my arms. And the rest, as they say, is history. It took off like crazy. And I started to see where I was getting asked to speak for companies that were competing with the services company, meaning I only served one direct sales company at that point. Right. I had other companies calling me to speak. So my personal integrity, I felt like that was a conflict of interest. So I sold the services business. Right. Sold it and put all my energy into the Barefoot Executive. Another deadline. I think if you were to look at maybe a secret to some of my success, it would be hard and fast deadlines and holding true to those.
Why are hard and fast deadlines so important to you? And what does that mean, a hard and fast deadline?
Well, so when I decided to start my website, my business was, I think people are very comfortable being a little uncomfortable. They're pretty comfortable being in debt. They're pretty comfortable mixing their money and embezzling from themselves. And that's why they don't know how much their business is not making, right? They don't want to be accountable for it. We were really crushing it in this business, but I wanted to start a website, the Barefoot Executive. So I said to my family, meeting of 6, baby, 4-year-old, the family, Mom's going to start a new business. And
this was business number 2. Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was pretty much business number 3 because of the direct sales business, but profitable, we'll say wildly profitable business, that I owned. Mom's going to start a new business, and I know I'm already busy, and I know that you love it when I chill with you, and I know things were just kind of easing up with the other business, but, and this was in August. I said, I just booked us a vacation to the Turks and Caicos for spring break to go to the Sesame Street Resort, where Elmo lives and Zoe lives. I said, if you'll give me 6 months to really focus on this business, to be on my phone when you're doing stuff, to sit by the pool but not be in the pool with you. If you'll give me 6 months and not complain about me working and let me really focus, it'll never be that way again. And at the Turks and Caicos, I won't take my phone. I won't take any business books. It'll be all you the whole time we're there. And I'm going to pay 100% of it out of the proceeds of the new business. And I made that promise to my kids, not to take any money out of the budget or the other business. I made that promise to my husband because remember, we had been in extreme debt before, and that was my fault. That was me juggling things, not him. He's a financial planner. It was me. That's another fun conversation. Telling your husband how much debt you're in when he doesn't know. So that was a hard and fast deadline. 6 months to get the Barefoot Executive up and running and profitable. And sure enough, they said, okay, we put up posters. We played the video of Zoe coming out to the van and greeting them. And we paid the deposit. That was a $12,000 vacation at that point. Now, again, that's 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. So from startup to then, we created that and then some. I think when we left for vacation on the Turks and Caicos, I hired my assistant, who's still with me, my virtual assistant, to take over what was going on at that time so I could go be on the beach with my kids. We had already created, I want to say, $65,000 in less than 6 months in 2007. With no name, no reputation, no celebrity status, no social media, no paid advertising, none of that. And we had an email list of 22,000 when I left for the beach. Went to the beach and kept my word to the kids and made the decision we needed to sell the other company when we came back and devote all of our efforts to that. And
it was a beautiful little pivot.
It was a little pivot.
So going back to the first company, how long were you in that one before you sold it?
The services business, I launched it my birthday of 2002. I was just about to say my age there. Which I'm not.
Almost.
Yeah, it was I tend to do things at landmark times. And so it was my birthday, 2002. And then I turned the keys completely over, I think, in 9 or 10. They were under a couple of year, payout plan or something. But I want to say 10 was when I was totally done with that one. And we created multiple millions of dollars in that and serviced, on average, 1,700 Spanish and English customers a month.
That's amazing. So I'm going to assume that 6-week period where you started that business, that was pivotal, the genesis. Mm-hmm. But when we look at now chapter 1, I'm going to assume it wasn't all sunshine and roses to grow that business for 8 years and make multiples of millions of dollars and, for English and Spanish businesses. What was probably some of the biggest, I was going to say what was the first biggest challenge that you came up against, but I'm going to just open it and say, what were some of the biggest challenges that you came up with early in the piece that you were just like, whoa, shit, I didn't know that was, I didn't know I needed to know that.
Right. Well, I wasn't surrounded by people that got me. They didn't understand me.
Did you feel like that most of your life, though?
Yeah, sometimes. But I always at least, had my family that pretended to try.
But have you always felt different, I guess, is a question?
Oh, yeah. I read an essay the other day by, I think it was Erin Weatherly, and she said, I've always been too much. I've always been told I was too much, a little loud, a little this, to talk a little too much. And I thought, I feel that. I get that. And I'm unapologetic about it now, but I also see that there's a time and a season. But yeah, I totally get that. But I was in a community where people didn't understand working for yourself necessarily, except that...
Well, I'm going to assume people didn't understand what a VA was.
Well, no, and we didn't even have that term at that point yet. My mom, though, growing up, always was a Barefoot Executive, always teaching piano lessons. My dad was military, I might have mentioned. That's not a very high-paying career. She taught piano lessons. She sewed our choir dresses. She altered band uniforms. We did craft shows. My mom could create money from her skill set or her resources, always. That's how we survived. Dad's paycheck once a month, and then mom filled in the gaps. And she always had a little money squirreled away here and there. You always knew that if you needed something, mom had a little cash tucked in somewhere, because we weren't credit card based at all either. So I did watch that, but then it didn't translate digitally to me necessarily. And so the internet was really foreign to people. We weren't texting yet still, really. And it was just different. So I felt like there were some obstacles there. I felt very alienated, very isolated. But you also have to remember I was kind of a new mom at the same time, even in those first few years later.
With 2 kids, one of them being special needs.
And then, yeah, it had gotten to the point that every day when I picked him up from school, the teacher marched him out to the car, and I'm like, what is happening? I don't understand. It turned out to be part of his intellectual disability, but at the time we thought it was just behavior. To stack on top of that, my husband's job, he's gone 90% of the semester. Most of the time, Monday through Thursday, weekdays.
Yeah, right.
Except summers and holidays, because of where his accounts are. So I was a single mom, special needs kid, preschoolers. Every mom listening is like, what are you doing? And I weighed 266 pounds at that point.
Wow.
And I don't even know how to translate that to Australian weight. But my parents also moved from Texas to Canada right at that point when I was starting to feel like I needed them the most.
Oh, wow.
Is when they made a big life change and went to do ministry up in Canada for 5 years. So it was make or break, do or die. I could sit and whine about it. And I did have a very dark period of time. My family, we deal with manic depression. So I had some really big highs, some low lows. My own mental health tends to be triggered by situational things. So my doctor at that point said, Carrie, the average adult can deal with one core stressor at a time: job loss, divorce, illness, child, whatever. Maybe 2 if they're pretty resilient. You take on 3 or 4 at a time on purpose. Like, oh, hey, let's create a business. Oh, hey, let's adopt siblings. Oh, hey, he said, you've got to stop. You are adding to what is already a mental health struggle for you. So that all happened at the same time. And I remember right before I turned 30, my journal was very dark. And it was very like, how am I going to tell Eddie about all the debt that we're in? Am I even useful? We had moved geographical locations, and because my friends did not email and it was long distance, we still had to pay per minute to talk. I was feeling very out of touch from everybody. And I had one of those dark, like, suicidal moments. Now, would I have done that? I'm kind of a chicken. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to miss. I don't want to be paralyzed the rest of, you know what I mean? There's not a perfect, I hadn't even gotten that far, but I was just really dark and despondent and having a hard time pulling out of it. And then I remembered very clearly, whether you believe in God or universe or whatever, I remember very clearly the moment that I stood before the judge with my 2 kids. And the judge said to us, these children are now losing a set of birth parents. I need for you to vow to me that if it's in your control, they will not lose another set of parents. Do you promise to do everything in your power to love them for as long as you all shall live and take care of them? And I remembered that moment, and I said, I chose them. They didn't ask for me to be their mom. They didn't ask to be transplanted. What kind of a sorry character would I be if I abandoned them after what they've already been to? I promised the judge. Now, I come from a military family. I come from a ministry family. We keep our commitments. Okay, that means I'm staying. That means one day at a time, I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. And that day, right before I turned 30 years old, was when I made a decision. Start eating a little healthier every day. Start being a little more engaged and present. Start looking for happier things. Start a business. Within 2 weeks, I was standing in the kitchen sobbing about applying for jobs that I was very qualified for. Like, they read like my resume. I was so qualified, I couldn't get an interview. Probably applied for 100 jobs, couldn't get an interview. My husband said, I think that's because you're not supposed to be out of the house. I think in this season, you could be working here and creating here. And he said, what about that woman that did those newsletters for you? You could do that. You have a degree in journalism. You have desktop publishing. You were in that company. I said, yeah, but what do we say? Yeah, but she's already doing that. He said, listen, I want you to just promise me you're going to give it 2 to 3 weeks of a Carrie try. You're just going to get in there and carry it for 2 to 3 weeks.
Carry it. I like that.
2 to 3 weeks to just do what you do, to be obsessed with it, to be focused on it. And if after 2 to 3 weeks you can't make it work and you want to give up, we'll look at some other options. Now, I don't know what that meant. And I never called his bluff on it because after 3 weeks, I already had 100 clients. Recurring billing, 100 clients. Dial-up internet on a computer I already had. It was insane. I called the woman who had that other company and said, I'm thinking about starting this, but I know you already have this. She said, Carrie, I work with 100 people out of 100 people out of 11,000 potential clients. I think there's room for you. She said, but I so respect you for asking, can I mentor you?
Oh, wow.
So she walked me through software. She walked me through some do's and don'ts. And we then turned her idea and what she had done for 100, we made it scalable and replicable and duplicatable with software and systems and what we knew. And we worked with 1,700 in the same way she worked with 100. So we really grew and stretched it with her permission. She was always so proud. If she had a client that wasn't a good fit, she'd send them to me and vice versa.
That's just beautiful.
So we did the right thing. We always tried to do the right thing. And so that's where it started. Wow, and that was incredible. The dark spot. So that was just one of the many, many hard things.
Are you still someone who likes to bite off more than you can chew?
I have major renovations going on at my house right now. So many texts on my way here about this permit and that permit. Yeah, I feel like one of my drivers is probably back against the wall kind of driver.
Where I do my best.
You have to do it. Yeah. I was a journalism for my undergrad, so I functioned on deadline quite a lot. I functioned really well on stage and on the fly in an interview setting. I would probably be really good at what do they call the comedy where you
improv?
Improv, yeah. So a lot of my speaking is improv. Probably the first 20 minutes of every keynote I do is a lot of improv based on where I am and who's there and the feel I get from the room. So I create projects and deadlines to challenge
I see that
myself.
as a very common trait with people who are overachievers at the highest levels. They like to be busy. They like to be doing lots of things. But one of the things that I've seen is a key thing that distinguishes, good from, absolute greatness. It's not the absence of mental health issues. It's not the absence of stress. If anything, I'm seeing a lot more stress across the board. I'm seeing mental health issues being exacerbated at a whole nother level now with the level of transparency that the internet gives us. And also by the fact that business has been put on this pedestal to be quite celebrity, and so a lot more people now who are doing it that wouldn't have perhaps done it before. And so mental health issues, suicide, like all these stress, all at all-time highs. But what I've noticed with some of the elite performers is they have their rituals, and their rituals are, okay, if I've got a mental health, if I'm experiencing, okay, I can feel a bit of the dark creep coming in, okay, this is what I do. I'm feeling a little bit stressed, this is my process. Have you developed some processes that you can walk us through that would be good for, because I have no doubt there's probably at least 100 or 5,000 women or 50 million women out there listening going, oh my God, she sounds like me. Or men, or men even.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have to be embarrassed about mental health, but we also don't have to use it as a crutch either. Just like diabetes or heart health or other things, there are treatments, there are experts, there are warning signs, and we have to see people about it. So don't use it as a crutch or a reason why you're not doing something. One of the things I love to say and work with my clients on is we have to turn our excuses of why we're not doing things. For instance, son with special needs, husband that travels all the time, aging parents, obesity, social anxiety. I could have turned all of those into reasons why I could not have a business or be on stage or be any kind of, presence. Instead, I flip it and I turn those things into reasons why I must do those things. My son has a disability, so I must fund his choices and his life.
Is this a conscious process where you look at something and you go,
yes,
right,
I write them down. I write them down and I flip it. If I find myself excusing myself, I flip it. That's the reason why I have to do that. I have a husband that travels. Therefore, I need to be even more present for my kids. I need to be even more engaged with what he knows about them or how intentional we're parenting. Because we have aging parents and he's an only, and I'm the only girl, the nurturer. We have funded long-term care insurance for our parents for over 10 years. And so that they would have choices when they were older. We spend probably a mortgage on that monthly to fund that insurance for them so they will have some dignified choices when the time comes. And I could say, oh, my parents are aging, so I can't work my business. But instead, our parents are aging and one has Alzheimer's. And so that's why we must hustle. That's why we must make wise choices with our money so that they'll have choices when they get older, so that our kids will see what it is to be responsible adult children and, those kind of things. So it's a very conscious process with us.
You've inspired a lot of people to follow your footsteps and to get into business yourself. But in terms of the warnings that you give people not to do it, are there any, because I'm curious to know, because I say this all the time,
the scroll that drops, people that should not be in business.
But again, I also want to touch on the fact that we want to make sure we're not using an excuse as a reason to stay out.
No.
Most people say, well, I've got manic depression or I've got depression. I can't possibly risk going into business.
Some of the best business owners we know are a hot mess mentally, right? Or physically. Sean Stevenson that we just lost, was in a wheelchair and was a little man and had so many physical ailments, and it drove him to be better and better and better. So we've got nothing.
When do you tell someone, okay, it's not a good idea for you to get into business?
So in my own family of my husband and I and our 4 kids, we're about evenly split. We're half entrepreneurial and half not. And the ones that are not, they like the idea of it, but they're not wired for it. They don't like risk. If you cannot stomach any risk, low or high, business is not the place for you. It's really not. Because you may have an amazing month and then you may have not an amazing month. The recession may hit somebody, your algorithms may be off. And I saw a sale on my way here on Instagram and they were freaking out because somehow Instagram had shadowed them or whatever they call it. Shadow banned them. And so nobody was seeing all their promotions and things, and their cart sales were down 75% on the day of their launch. They have no control over that. It doesn't mean they did anything wrong. It's just some of those things are out of our control. So if risk is something you cannot stomach, you probably should not be in business. If you... I'm an empath, so I feel things very deeply and easily and intuitively. That can crash some people if you can't manage it. If you take everything too personally, if you're too much of a people pleaser, if you are wounded or despondent, if somebody doesn't like you or criticizes you or judges you, business may not be the place for you. Or you need to choose your model very carefully. You need to create a product, not intellectual property. You cannot be your brand if you are too sensitive to criticism, if you can't cope, if you can't work with it, because you know that you could just be doing your thing and somebody's still going to hate. Somebody's still going to, there's still going to be somebody watching this that has something to say about my outfit or my hair or my lipstick or my weight or my whatever, hashtag still fat, whatever they do. And I'm tougher now. Part of that's my age.
We'll put a link below for those people, www.fuckoff.com.
I was on a webcast one time and the feedback was so great and it was so good. And I was a little heavier than I am now, but I had actually a stylist from Australia email me in America to tell me how I damaged my own credibility with the way that I dressed and my style and my hair and my, this
On behalf of Australia,
it
apologize.
was several years ago. I showed it to the producer and I showed it to my team and I said, my mama taught me to take in the meat and spit out the bones. And what that means is you say, what of this is true? What of this could I work on?
I love that. I love that.
What of this is just that person having a rough day? Where does this person need some grace? Maybe that outfit. Yes, if I lost 40 pounds, it'd be better. And I did. I styled myself differently. Now, she wasn't about to get a dime of my money because of how she approached that.
Yeah.
She could have done that differently. I did not waste my business coaching on going back and forth with her on, here's how you could have done that differently. I just, bless her heart, and deleted it. That's what we say in Texas, bless her heart. Covers a range of things. But, so if you're overly sensitive, if you can't handle criticism or disagreement, then do not create a personal brand or an intellectual property brand. Choose your business carefully. Also, if you have a partner or spouse, it's a team sport. They don't have to be in business with you, but they have to be on team you. And so if they're very adverse, if it's going to split up your marriage, we've seen it happen
It's
over and over.
It's very common.
And over again.
When businesses go bust, it takes people with them.
Or when businesses do amazing.
This is true.
Or when your visibility skyrockets, or when if you don't handle the popularity well. I mean, there's so many reasons, but you have to be a cohesive team. So I would say those are a few things. I would also say don't start a business if you're necessarily on the verge of bankruptcy. Transition out of your job. Have some kind of nest somewhere. Now, that being said, we know people that have not done that. I myself had 6 weeks of a paycheck left. But I still wouldn't have said we would have been in bankruptcy if something had happened. I still think we could have figured it out. I didn't have to make a ton right away in order to survive, to pay my bills. But I think you have to know your mental health. You have to know your own self-awareness as an entrepreneur is your number one tool.
One of the biggest challenges I hear from people is managing relationships.
Yeah.
In business in general, but especially in those early stages.
Yeah.
You kind of had an interesting scenario because your husband was away 90% of the time. You also were looking after 2 kids, one being special needs and everything else that's going on at the same time. But I'm curious to know how you managed the relationship side, because it sounds like he was like, yeah, go for it. But I'm going to assume there might have been some times where it wasn't as all sunshine and roses.
He is 100% believes in me more than any human probably ever has. He has seen me. Now, my parents believe in me, and they think I can do anything. However, they had to overcome a few years of the patriarchy and a few years of tradition and a few years of, that's not for us. My mom one point said, when is enough enough? Don't grow your business too big. When is enough enough? And this was early. When I was in those first few weeks getting those 100 clients so quickly. Well, Carrie, when's enough enough? You need to know when to say no because too much is greedy. Those tapes. So now they're totally full circle and they see it and they get it now. But there was a time when they weren't terribly supportive because they didn't understand it all. And remember, they were 5 years away while I was building this empire, so to speak. But my husband, he believes I can do anything, and he's seen me do that. I took 27 hours, college hours, my last semester and worked full-time. I worked 84 hours a week the summer after we got married so we could pay off all of our student loans in one summer. I worked from 4 to 10 in the afternoon after I taught all day, 4 to 10 in the afternoon so we could save up and buy a house and adopt kids. He's seen it, so he believes in me.
You have a ridiculous work ethic. Where did that come from? Like, I'm going to assume there's some part of your life where discipline was introduced and it just became a pathological part of your life. Where did that come in?
Well, my parents are workers.
Yeah.
Workers. I think some of that is genetic. I think some of it is modeled.
But what about disciplines? What disciplines were you involved in as a child? Sports or?
Music. I'm a trained musician.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, we were a very faithful church family. So we were there every time the doors opened. and there till everybody left. That was very much a part of who we were. And also, you kept your commitments. You did what you said you would do. My dad, for background, was a military officer, 3 little kids. Because of lack of technology at that point, we would get orders to move somewhere. He would have to go ahead of us 2 or 3 weeks and find a house and secure the house. And then we would pack up the house and sell the house and then move to meet him. And we would move into a house having never seen it. I remember when I was 8 years old, maybe 6 or 7, walking into a house in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. 3 kids. I was the youngest at that point. That's before the number 4 came along. And my mom, who was always very supportive as far as we knew, with the eyebrows up, looking around, saying, "Oh, I like it. But there's one bathroom. And where are we going to put where's the boys' bedroom?" And Dad said to her, I will never forget this moment. He said to her, "Oh, I'm going to knock out this wall, and I'm going to put a staircase there, and I'm going to put a second story on the house." My dad, who we'd never seen to this point build anything yet. And he painted this vision of what the house was going to look like. And she's looking at him, and she said, "How are you going to do that?" He said, "Well, while I've been up here alone for 3 weeks, I saw this TV special for these Time Life home improvement books. And I ordered the series. There's one on plumbing. There's one on..." He said, "I ordered the books, babe. It's going to be okay." And you know what?
It was.
My dad put a second story on that house with plumbing. It wasn't all perfect. He did it after work. He was an officer. After work, on weekends, we had no budget for help. He would sometimes call people from the church to come help him figure it out. And now he's 81 years old, and he still has these books. If your listeners go to my YouTube channel, there's a mini documentary I made for his birthday about the Time Life books. He still has them. He takes them to disaster areas and orphanages he rebuilds with his senior citizen guy friends. And he said, "I'll pull out, if we run up against some electrician or some plumbing or something we can't figure out, we crack open the books and we figure it out." So I was raised by that guy. And by a mom who worked like crazy, with every skill and everything she had in her to make every dollar turn into 10, and raised us without any help. And she was far away from her family all the time because we were military. So, I guess I absorbed some of that. But yeah, I like to be busy. I like to be productive. I still like to DIY around my house. I remodel here and there. And in addition to my business, I just got my master's degree this last year. Tackled a degree at my age, same age as my dad when he got his first degree, ironically, because I wanted it. I don't get a raise because I work for myself. It's going to look good on a book jacket, but I wanted it, and I wanted my girls to see that the boys don't have to be more educated than the girls. And I wanted my dad...
What's your master's in?
Leadership.
Wow.
Leadership and business, yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and mass communication is my undergrad.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Faith, I've heard you mention it a few times. How big a role has that played in your journey?
It's huge in my journey. It's very much a part of who I am.
So it's part of your DNA.
It's part of my DNA. It's very much, it's not a religion for me. It's a relationship for me. So
Okay.
I do have a personal faith relationship. It's not just activities at the church. It's the community of the people that are there and the way that we tackle challenges. And, I could look at my life and say, why did God allow my son to be disabled? Well, the fact is I can look at science and know why he's disabled. He has fetal alcohol syndrome from choices that his birth mother made. God didn't do that to him. A human did that to him. And I can say, but with my faith in God, we can tackle this. And Mark is living his best life. Mark is an amazing young man. He will always be my little boy, and he's almost 24 and 6'3", and he is the most joyful, thoughtful, compassionate hot mess that you've ever seen. And he works a job, and he loves his sisters. And faith is one way that I tackle obstacles. Faith is, kind of an anchor that brings us back. Is it an airy-fairy, I make wishes and things happen? No, I work hard. I feel like, I think I heard an old Southerner say this once, you can be a farmer and pray for your crops. You can pray for rain, but you better get out there and plant something. and you better hoe the weeds out of it. You know, God's not going to do that part for you. So yeah, faith is a very integral part of my journey. You know, I can look at creation and be awed and inspired by it. I'm not crippled by it. I don't hate because of it. I think my reputation in the industry is such, people will tell you, Carrie loves people. And I do. I love people. I remember Craig Ballantyne from Early to Rise said to me one time, what is it with you? Why are your people so crazy about you? And I said, I don't know that they're really crazy about me. I think they're crazy about the fact that they know I'm crazy about them. People want to be loved. People want to be recognized and valued. And so if that's something that I feel like my faith has done for me, helped me feel valued and loved and appreciated, why would I not, you know, show that to other people too? Yeah.
So you then moved into the Barefoot Executive.
Barefoot Executive was my website.
Yep.
Then Thomas Nelson approached me on Twitter and said, would you write a book? You know, it's not supposed to happen that way. You're supposed to write proposals and write chapters. Would you write a book? We've been following your brand for 2 years. Would you write a book? That's when Michael Hyatt was the CEO and Joel Miller was his business acquisitions editor. We'd like for you to write that book. And here's kind of what we want it to be about. And I said, okay, it was on the bucket list at some point, but I guess we'll do it now. So that published in 2011. Just sold 2,500 copies yesterday to an organization. So still 9 years later, 9 years later, still selling. And working on the next one. We'll probably self-publish this next one. Okay. So I have more control over updates and marketing and those kind of things. Also, the publishing world's come a long way in the last 10 years. So yeah, I have a book, Barefoot Executive, and that was my brand for a long time, The Barefoot Executive. And some people still introduce me that way. And, you know, when you have a good brand, it's hard to shake it sometimes.
Yeah, and it's a solid brand.
Yeah, it's a solid brand.
It's then been pivoted into something other. You've got the Barefoot Economist. You've got the...
Oh, there's the Barefoot Authors now, and the Barefoot... and I get
the
emails all the time. It was, you know, we spawned a lot of those things, and that's... A lot of people ask me if that upsets me. I'll say, you know what, why would that upset me? That makes me like an influencer of influencers. It doesn't bother me in the least. I can create and innovate faster than they can imitate, right? And I don't even know who said that initially, but it's
such a good quote. True.
Maybe Rich Sheffrin, maybe, you know, Jim Rohn, who knows? One of the greats. But
so what does life for the Barefoot Executive look like now? A day in the life.
Whatever I want it to. Not really. I still work really hard.
Yeah.
I still work really hard. I still have 2 in school.
Yeah.
So I still have 2 kids at home. And I tell you what, I love junior high and high school kids. I am really close with my kids, but this is such a fun age. And I love technology with kids. Now, it's hard. I have to be really intentional with them, but one of them texted me on the plane. She and her girlfriends were in the hall, and they're like, what's your mom doing today? Oh, you know her. She's in and out of California today. She'll be here tomorrow for blah, blah, blah. And they're like, let's take her a picture and tell her we love her. So I got a picture of she and 4 of her. These are sophomores in high school, 15, 16 years old, wanted to send me a little picture and tell me they loved me. I mean, what?
As a parent, honestly, what more can
As a parent and as somebody who really strives to know my kids' friends. That's why we've put a pool in. That's why we're putting a volleyball court in the backyard. That's why we do those things so that the kids will come to us.
Yes.
So that we have the place.
Such a great idea.
I don't have to wonder where everybody is. They're in my backyard, and I'll happily feed you. Let's pull up the food trucks. I'm cool with all that. Let's have them there. A day in the life depends because I believe in blocking and batching and being really intentional with my time. So every day looks a little different. I tend to do people work on Tuesdays and Thursdays, interviews, client-facing work, talk to humans, be cute, that kind of work on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Why is that? Because everybody always wants to know, what's the formula? Is that the best day to do it? It's because since 1998, I have had at least 1 child in school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So when they were little, it was mom's day out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And when they got a little older, it was preschool. And then it was everybody. And then my younger 2 actually went to a cooperative homeschool where they only attended classes Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's when I did my work where I had to have a quiet house or, some kind of peace. So it just stuck, and I still do that 21 years later. Wednesdays just changed. Wednesdays were more of a production day, but now it's a day where I go gather with my faith community in the mornings, and we have a class. And then I'm trying to keep lunch free for social, to go do those lunches or do those coffees or do those whatever, and then come back into the office in the afternoon. So that's a little flexible right now. I'm still working on that flow. Otherwise, we trap ourselves at home and we don't go see humans. Monday, I don't like to talk to anybody or see anybody. I only do administrative work on Monday, so I take the kids to school. You asked me earlier, and I think we never came back to it, about the routines when I see the dark coming.
Yes.
Or to stave them off. And I think I don't want to leave anybody hanging about that, because I do think self-awareness is really important.
Please, yeah.
The sun here is amazing. This would be my office if this were my house. You have to know what some of your triggers are. And I struggle from November to March, because that's when it's a little more gray in the weather.
Okay.
So I double my vitamin D. I'm very conscious about supplements. I double my D because I'm not getting any sun. I have a desk lamp that shines in my face. My desk faces a window. I have a ring light for video, like all those YouTubers use. I use it on a daily basis just for added light. One of my core routines is to get up at the same time every single day. I did not do that with my older two children. I was the mom that woke up when they woke me up. I shifted. I changed the person that I was, and I started getting up at the same time every day and getting dressed before anyone ever saw me. Get up, dress to work, whatever that looks like. I don't dress like this every day, but dress to work. I don't take the kids to school in pajamas. I don't hang out like that. I dress like I need to feel. If that makes sense. Sure. It helps me control my weight too. A lot of times we expand to fit our clothes. So I started wearing
we
after
wear
I lost
clothes
weight.
that expand with.
Right. So those are some of my routines. Coffee is part of my routine. A lot of people, I tweet and post about coffee a bit. I really only have about 1 cup a day. It's a good size cup, but about 1 cup a day. But it's not because I'm addicted to caffeine. It's because it's part of my routine. And it's a routine that makes me feel very connected to my dad and my grandmother. I never remember them without coffee. And I remember being a little kid thinking, waking up to that smell, watching the routine of them making it, and thinking, I can't wait to be grown up like them. I want to be like them when I grow up. And so that's part of my routine. So some things that ground me like that. I have certain playlists that I listen to. I am a big fan of scents, like essential oils or sprays or perfumes. I, no kidding, have a perfume called Amazing Grace that when I feel like I'm beating myself up, Amazing Grace is what I wear that day. I have Happy by Clinique that, no kidding, some days it's happy days. I have Beautiful, I have Coach, which, they need to call that first class. Why do they call that Coach? I don't even understand. But there are things, I have Wonder Woman pajamas. I have things that are external manifestations that help me feel stronger, like the Amy Cuddy Power Pose, right? I think we have to be self-aware. So you also have to be aware of your fuel. How are you feeling your body? If I'm feeling really down and draggy and sluggish, I can almost guarantee you I've had too many processed carbohydrates or junk. And I need to really watch my intake. Maybe I haven't been around humans enough. Maybe I've been focused too much on me instead of this. Maybe I need to go outside. So lots of those kind of routines. Set sleep schedule, scents, make sure you feel cute. A lot of times when you're feeling down, you get into this funk. If you dress as if you're going out or as if you feel cute, the truth is pushing yourself. A friend of mine says, I can tell you're pushing today. They know when I'm dark. I can tell you're pushing today because that's when I will force the shower and force the hair or go to the dry bar or go get my nails done or whatever that's like to act as if until I can become. Not that we can always overcome it. Some days, there are days you need to have the 6-hour nap. As long as you're not endangering anybody or neglecting, life. If that becomes a habit, you need to get some help or medication. I'm very conscious with the vitamins that I take. They have extra B vitamins in them because I can tell that elevates me a little bit. So Those are some of my routines. I do try to unplug one day a week. It doesn't mean I do a total digital detox. It means, you talked about Genesis earlier, it means the Sabbath. It means the day off. It means don't hustle that day. Don't grind that day. Be with humans, eat good food, watch a movie, do something that fills your soul. Listen to a waterfall, play, whatever that looks like for you. We are not designed to be the Energizer Bunny. We're not designed to go and go and go. We're designed to go and pause and go and pause. And so I think programming in the pauses is really important.
It's been an enlightening conversation, Carrie. Thank you so much. Now, I'm assuming what's next for you is the book, Moving the Needle?
Yeah.
When's that due?
Overdue. It's overdue.
Oh.
It's overdue. So it'll be any minute.
Okay.
So what's next is now, for the most part, I'm full-time speaking and consulting. I routinely speak to audiences of 3, 5, 15,000 in conferences, and that's my favorite thing to do. The travel is not my favorite, but that's my favorite. So we're ramping up the speaking a little more. I got permission from the kids this year, and that'll sound really probably backwards to our female power audience. But remember, I said if you know what your core values are, you can respect those. Kids and I had a conversation. I said, listen, I'm getting a lot more calls to do speaking, but I'm still only doing 2 a month. And they had a little conversation. They said, Mom, we love having you here on the weekend, but if you wanted to do 3 a month or 4 a month, or even more in the summer, whatever, we get it. And we think you need to be doing what you need to be doing. You're so good at that, Mom. Why would you not be doing that? We're old enough. We've got this. We're okay. And it was, I needed that. I needed to know I wasn't taking away from them. I needed to know that it was the time to turn up the dial. So speaking more, and the book comes out next. And after that, who knows? It's an interesting adventure or nothing at all, right? I have my third one's about to be driving, so that'll be interesting. That'll free me up a little more too, because the mom taxi cab will be able to slow down a little. So that's
a million miles an hour.
A million miles an hour, and that's the way we like it.
And that's the way you like it.
That's
I was just going to say that's the way you like it.
We're busy. I'm renovating the house little by little, so that's kind of fun. I've been looking around for inspirations here because I am landscaping the backyard to go with the pool and creating the oasis there. Because now, don't tell my husband because he doesn't know this yet, but my bedroom kind of overlooks the backyard. And I already have preliminary plans to bump out one of the walls and put in a mini office, like a writing office that overlooks the pool. Oh. So that I could kind of have 2 different workspaces in the house. That's another routine. See, some of these are so intuitive, we forget we have them. When you're in a funk or when you're in a rut or when you can't feel motivated, change your scenery, change your scenario, do something different. So if I had a different spot that was a writing trigger or a creating trigger, I would love to do that. And the sound of the waterfall and the view out there, I think, would be really helpful for me. So we'll see. That maybe next, maybe not.
I think there's another book in you called Designing Your Life.
Maybe so.
I think so.
Maybe so.
You're very together. Carrie, it's been a real honor and a real pleasure. Where can we find you? Like if people want to find out more, where they can buy the book, The Barefoot Executives, the next book?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. You can also go to carriewilkerson.com. I spell Carrie the same way Stephen King does, right? The same way the horror movie, Carrie Wilkerson.com. If you go there, there's any number of free goodies and downloads and video series. Also, the YouTube channel has more of me than you could possibly stand, and you could binge or not. But those are probably the easiest places to find me.
Carrie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That's great. This episode was brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for business. There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Ray. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get to see all of these interviews in the flesh. Share this podcast with your friends and drop me a review on iTunes. I would love to hear what you guys think, and also let you know your comments help make sure that we keep producing killer content just like this. And if you'd like to stay up to date with all of my movements, upcoming podcasts, events, and much more, please jump onto the website kerwinray.com and also check us out on all social media on the handle @KerwinRay. Thanks for joining us.